Pokemon with guns isn't what I expected it to be, but I think it's all the better for it, and I absolutely love it. So recently Palworld was added to Game Pass as an early access game, and everyone was expecting that it would be just a Pokemon but with guns, maybe with different combat, something like that. The reality is that Palworld is actually nothing like Pokemon. It's actually far more similar to something like an Ark Survival Evolved, and cross that with Pokemon, sprinkle in just a little bit of Minecraft, and you have Palworld, apparently. And to be honest, it's every bit as unorthodox as I expected this to be, but it does it in a way that I never expected. Let's go through a little bit of what Palworld actually does, so you can get a bit of a better idea about what it is. So Palworld starts you off on an island with no gear to your name and very little instruction. There is a tutorial that does take you through the basics, and what it does is it will get you to mine trees, rocks, classic survival game stuff. After that, you'll be sent to build a crafting bench, and then you can start acquiring your pals, which are acquired in a very similar way to if you played Pokemon Legends Arceus. The catching mechanic sort of works similarly to that. You can throw a Powerball directly at a pal and capture it, and you should do a lot of damage before so that you can make sure that the catch chance is as high as possible. If you hit a pal in the back, you get an extra chance of capturing it then as well, and there are tons of different pals available in the game to catch. As with all Pokemon type games, the starter area has very few different pals to catch, but there are a relative few, and they're all ones that you need very early on in the game. And that's because the way you use pals in this game is very different to how you would in a game like Pokemon, which is why this is so different. Because Palworld actually isn't an RPG, it's much more of a base building game, mixed with a little bit of RPG mechanics and some survival game mechanics in there as well. Because the objective of Palworld isn't to grow your Pokemon and fight a league in the same way that Pokemon is with a big comprehensive story. It's about building a base and making it as strong as possible. So each pal has a certain trait or a certain ability that will then come in handy when you're building your base. There's this one pal that has an ability to, for example, craft kindling and cook for you. There's another pal that can plant trees for you. There's another pal that can specialize in hunter and gathering, and there's more that are good at lumbering, things like that. So basically, pals each have a specific role in your base, and each type of pal also has a specific ability that can help you out in combat too. That's all not including the fact that each pal also has a series of moves that it can use against other pals as well. It's a lot. There is a lot to figure out here, but the game's tutorial actually does a wonderful job at moving you through all these different stages. Let's just talk about a little bit about progression and how the game feeds you into each aspect of it before we talk about things like the combat and how guns incorporate themselves into this game. So if you remember earlier I made a comparison to Ark Survival Evolved, well that's where Palworld gets its progression system from, because in Palworld you can upgrade both your own personal stats as well as each level, which unlocks another ability in the tech tree, or several abilities, because you're given a few tech points to unlock a selection of different tech abilities which you can craft later on for your own base or for your pals. It's a really intuitive system, and you grow as you both fight and capture more pals, as well as build up your base, and even your base has a level. When you build your base first, it's kind of like the Pokemon PC, where you can store your Pokemon or your pals in your base, and they can then do different jobs, and they can do various things for you and heal as well. It's also the only place you can revive fainted pals. But after you've done this, you can then level up your base bit by bit, because it will give you a series of missions or requirements you have to fulfill before you can then level up your base and increase the amount of pals you can have that can work on your base at one time, and you can also increase the number of bases that you can build too. It's a really, really interesting system that does work to really introduce a player to a gameplay loop that just feeds into itself continuously. And one thing I think that Palworld has absolutely nailed is this gameplay loop. It's addictive, and it's why I love this game so much, because I've only played for like 3 hours or so, but I'm already absolutely hooked with how this game draws you into its progression system. especially the way that each progression system goes into all the other progression systems to create one progression system that continuously feeds into itself. So whatever you're doing, you're progressing in some way, and that means that there's never a moment of the way you're just stagnant and not aiming towards a goal. The pals actually add to all this, because not only do you gain XP through stuff like combat and catching other pals, but you also can earn XP by doing jobs for the pals. So by assigning the pals to the correct jobs, it builds up your base faster, and it creates a base building system that's both innovative and also completely automated. It's really, really good stuff, and so few games have managed to do this successfully. The reason that Palworld succeeds though is because not only are its systems very well integrated with each other, but the power design is brilliant too. So even though you won't necessarily be spending the most time away from your base because you're constantly evolving and upgrading your base, but when you do spend time away from your base, you'll be completely obsessed with catching other pals, upgrading them, leveling them up. You know, you've got different forms of abilities that will benefit your character, that you can then unlock different pal abilities. There's just so much to do. And even though this is an early access game, there's clearly a lot of stuff to be done here. The only thing that I can see about this game that's early access are a couple of the, well, more technical issues, such as music being a bit too quiet and, well, not frequent enough. Like, there's times where the game is a bit silent. There's also some jankiness in the building techniques as well, because sometimes items don't want to rotate, and the way that things snap towards each other isn't the most satisfying at times. And even just stuff like jankiness and general bugginess as well. But for the most part, this is a very, very solid build, and I think that it can only go up from here. So the whole Pokemon with guns thing is really brought to life in the combat system. Because in Palworld, when you unlock more and more advanced technology, you gain access to stronger and stronger weapons. And, well, you don't just allow your pals to fight other pals in this game, but you yourself will help them too. Because pals not only help you manufacture your weapons, but you can then use your pals as weapons? Yeah, there is an item that does allow you to hold one of your pals and use it as a flamethrower. It's bizarre, but actually kind of cool. The actual weapons aren't unlocked until much, much later, but for now, I've equipped my character with bows, and even different sorts of bows like fire and poison bows that then make it easier for me to capture pals. Because you work together with your pals to capture other pals in this game. So essentially you'll throw a pal out, it'll then do battle with a different pal, use its moves on that pal, and then you'll be hitting the pal at the same time with whatever weapon you have equipped. When the pal is low enough in health, you can then chuck a pal ball at it and capture it. It's a very nice system. And there are also big boss enemies that you can encounter much later on, such as this absolutely massive pal that I didn't even go near, because I was only like level 6 at the time, and this thing was level 38. Stay away from those ones, because if you fight a pal that's even 2 to 3 levels above your current pal level, it will absolutely annihilate you. That's because pals don't just attack your pals, they also attack you, which means that if you get hit enough times to be knocked out, you'll lose all of your stuff and all of your pals, and you have to go back to where you died and pick up everything and start again. It's a very survivally type mechanic that actually makes perfect sense when you also see the Palworld's integrated a hunger, heat and cold system into the game too. So you have to think about all those things. Not only do you have a hunger, hot and cold and sleep gauge as well, but all your pals do. So if you don't provide them with the right tools to do the job, they won't be able to do the job. For example, if you don't provide your pal with a bed, it'll get stressed and therefore won't be able to work. It's the same thing with food. If you don't give them food in a food box, then they'll get hungry, they won't be able to work, and therefore your production will slow down. I do feel slightly bizarre about using my newly captured friends for work, but that's Palworld for you. It's interesting, to say the least, and it is most definitely unique. So, in a nutshell, that's Palworld. It's very, very different, especially from what I expected, because I think what I was expecting was some sort of cheap Pokemon clone. Palworld definitely is not that. It's something new entirely, which I think will only pay off, because each gameplay system may be a little janky right now, but they all fit into each other really, really well, and it will really pay off in Palworld's future. I'll be releasing more Palworld content and probably more guides as well once I get further into the game, and will update you when I have enough content for a review, a full review that is, not this preview. Anyway guys, that being said, make sure that you subscribe to this channel for more Palworld content, and I will catch you all very soon.